We're live at Legalweek 2026. I'm with David Cunningham, the Chief Innovation Officer at Reed Smith. I've known David for a little while, and one of the things that I'm really interested in talking to David about today is measuring what's happening. He's been a metrics guru, I think, for as long as I know you. Like, you're really that guy in our industry that says, how do we measure that?
Right.
What are we measuring? And so let's talk a little bit about that in terms of the AI dividend. What is it? How do we measure it? Is it an investment? Is it a return on investment? The evals? Just, you can riff anywhere you want on that.
Well, it's a big topic, right?
It is a big topic.
Yeah. And I think most would agree the conversation went from don't use AI to use AI and give me a discount to, I think, a more mature discussion of where we really are today, which is use AI and let's determine the value of how you're able to improve your services. And that's what we've enjoyed. And so sometimes we measure that in speed. When we say to certain clients, if we were able to deliver this service twice as fast, would that add value to you? And and we pick those questions carefully. If it's a global IP analysis of some sort, something we know where they're trying to make decisions and we're on the timeline to that, or a risk mitigation issue, we can assume that time is very important. And so in that case, we've used, I know AI is the umbrella, but AI and process and other approaches to services that complement the AI. And we've been able to get the work done 2 or 3 times as fast.
So that's interesting in the sense, so let's have a business conversation or a business context to that, which is time to deal, right? That's just one point, right? But I look to you to share the rest of it. So, like, if I can do it faster, and I'm in the software business, or I'm looking to close a deal, the sooner I get the deal done, the sooner let's just say the meter starts running on that deal. That's good. That's got real value, especially if this for time to contract, and we're talking about 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 contracts.
Right.
If these were leases, if these were sales agreements, software agreements, that's real money. That's gross revenue that you're talking about, and margin.
Absolutely. And if a company is trying to make decisions based on that data, especially if it's a competitive bid process, for example, then the sooner they have the information, the better. But there's so many other good examples. One that we probably come across the most is lawyers saying, I got to do a deeper and broader analysis in regardless of the timing. I was able to go places I wouldn't have gone before because the budget wouldn't allow it. The client wouldn't have wanted to pay for it, but I was able to do a 50-state survey or an analysis of the market in a way they can't do manually. And so they didn't charge more for that, and they wouldn't have been able to do that in the past, but now it's second nature that they can do that. And the client had very great appreciation for that result. And they can really deliver a higher value product. Instead of saying, here is my document or here is my summary, they're saying, based on the summary, based on the events that happened, here is my strategic thinking about what we should do about it.
Yeah, see, that's what that's what we call time to think, right? So I'm going to bill 5 or 50 hours to think, but I wouldn't have been able to think for, let's just say, 10 hours. I wouldn't have had 10 hours to think.
Right.
I would have had 8 hours to do and 2 hours to think.
Right.
Now I have 2 hours of doing and 8 hours of thinking. Do you want all of my 8 hours? You don't. If you don't want them, just let me know.
Right.
But here's the result you get. So now we're getting better results. Now we're getting quality.
Right.
I think that's I have to say that is one of the benefits to me personally in my business, is time to think.
And our clients really are at the point where they understand that point. And so, they may always ask for a discount, but when we were able to show them the difference in what we were able to deliver last year versus this year, and say the cost is the same, maybe it's a little bit lower, maybe it's the same, maybe it's a little bit higher, but they understand that we're being more of a business partner with them. We're solving problems, we're giving them a perspective, we're helping them make decisions.
What's another metric that you're bouncing around inside the conference rooms at Reed Smith these days?
Well, we do a lot of things that are about being a more mature business. And so one aspect that clients generally focus on more than law firms traditionally is the budget. And so, the classic way is that you agree on an estimate of the cost of the work up front, and law firms have traditionally put that on a shelf and said, now I'm going to get to work. And the legal departments often keep that number front and center because it's what they got approved for the matter. And so one way we're using AI is both to upfront benchmark better so we know what to set as the right price for this work, because that's evolving very quickly. That's sometimes on the spot, but we're doing it increasingly as a strategic perspective. Like what should things cost next year, basically? And then we're using tools and AI. I don't want to pretend everything is all AI, but we are analyzing ourselves to understand how we're forming teams, how much it takes to get tasks done, what tools we're using, and we're able to understand and predict the future enough to say, are we executing this matter in a way that will keep it within the budget? And what do we do if we're not?
You mentioned teams. What's the difference in the makeup of your teams today compared to 12 months ago? And then, if you will, foreshadow what it looks like 12 months from now.
Well, we're probably a bit unique in as a couple aspects. One is firms are tending to narrow the pyramid. Really, if you're to illustrate a firm, partners and associates, it's generally not even a pyramid anymore. It's generally a rectangle. And so one is that we continue to provide leverage with AI and our technology to the partners. So we tend to have more partners acting with smaller teams, and we see that trend continues, even though they're delivering more, delivering it faster, delivering it better. So that is certainly a change that's not necessarily unique to us. But then what is probably unique to us is we have a third level of that rectangle, which is our internal alternative teams. We call Reed Smith Legal Solutions. And so this is a group we've built up of about 300 people, and they have half the rate of an associate, but about 12 years of experience. And so that's a really important part of our mix, because we're able not just to say, hey, maybe in a very traditional early sense, a law firm could say to a partner, hey, do what you've always done, but please use Harvey. Please use this tool, right? That's good.
You're actually hearing clients ask and request Harvey, Legora, etc.
They don't necessarily, they never tell us what tool to use, but they certainly expect us to use a tool for sure. But it's pretty incremental just to say to a partner, do what you've always done, but please use a tool. We call it AI first. If I'm really progressive, I'm going to think first about how would I do this with AI. That's good. That's a good accomplishment. When we talk about AI native, it's really us saying we're going to rethink how we've delivered that service for the last 10 years, and we're going to do it across the team. And so we're going to redesign and say what's possible. And so for us, we not only have the tools, but we also have that third level of alternative services, and we can say, when is it appropriate to push this work down to that team? And that team is highly automated, highly trainable, and very tech friendly. And so we're trying to actively push as much work to them and to the associates. And then, as you said earlier, free up time for the partners to do more thinking. And that's a pretty powerful mix, but it doesn't happen incrementally. You've got to, this is the candle to a label. Like you've got to really stop and rethink and come at this a different way.
As I'm just getting a feeling in our conversation, Dave, that there's an appetite and an enthusiasm at Reed Smith. I hear from so many others where, it's leveling up and it's upskilling and it's a battle and it's a challenge. I'm like, I don't get that feeling from you at all. I get a feeling from you that whoever you're working with on your team, it might not be all of Reed Smith, but whoever you've got on your posse is like, they're all in.
Oh yeah. We suffer from the opposite problem. We are overwhelmed with people asking for help to do more.
Why is that? What's the difference? Is it leadership at the top? Is it you and your executive leadership team? I always think it's leadership at the top, by the way. So I don't mean to be leading the. I feel like I'm
Right.
leading the
Yeah, right.
leading the witness here. But I do think that there's a handful of David Cunninghams in the MLO space today. I think you're one of 10, maybe 15. Let's be generous and say it's 25, but I don't think it is. And that makes all the difference.
Well, I'm not the leadership at the top for sure. So
Very politically correct, David. I
the-
appreciate you saying that.
and unfortunately, the leader at the top, our managing partner, Casey Ryan, is a really key force in this. So she, we've been at this almost 3 years now, and she was early to say everybody has to get trained. Back when people were saying, should we use AI? We were saying 100%, everybody has to go through our certification process. And then we did the same with all partners, and now we're doing the same with all staff to make sure that all the firm understands the tools and what's possible, the approaches, the learning from others in this scenario. That is a baseline, behind us. And now we're at the point where we're understanding how are they using the tools. And luckily, every time we get people trained, it just grows logarithmically that their usage is growing. And we have, and there's not.
Usage is growing, so there's something else you're measuring.
It's for sure. That's it's how much are they using it, but also what are they using it for? And then
What does that take to put in? Was that a significant and meaningful investment of we're going to need to measure how much they're using, what they're using, and how much, and we're going to make that investment in that ability to measure? Was it easy or was it harder than you thought, or I thought?
well,
Boy, is that a terrible question, but I'm going to roll with it. I'm rolling with it.
all good. Well, there's different pieces because in we use Harvey. So in Harvey, you can only tell so much, and so that's part of the story. That helps. We can know that they use certain modules. We also have a large pilots of AI time entry, and so that helps us to know because that is tracking people in a Big Brother fashion. It's connected to all of our systems and browsers and Harvey, et cetera. We know not only how long it took them to do a task, we know what tools they use to do the task. And that's really helpful. And then we have a tool called Aora, which we use really in real time, but mainly retroactively to say, we're going to feed you our billing data, our time data, and then you analyze what people did. And with that, we're looking at not only enhancing the matter data to better understand the work, but also looking at efficiency and tasks and predicting what phase we're in a matter. And so we're not quite at the matrix with the green wall of data in front of us, but between those three pieces and a few others, and good SQL queries here and there. Rich Robbins is our head of AI. He's really at the center of these capabilities. We have a growing perspective.
What advice do you have for firms that are either law firms or corporate legal departments that are looking at Harvey, that are looking at Legora, that are looking at tools and technology and platforms along those lines? What advice do you have in terms of here's 3 criteria you might want to keep in mind? If I were buying a car and mileage was important to me, you might say, well, David, you might want to think about miles per gallon, and you might want to think about service charges, and the Ferrari is probably out of your budget.
Yeah.
What advice do you have in terms of criteria that way?
I will channel Rich here, who says, take the picture with the camera you have. Like, I don't think it really matters. At the end of the day, they're all great tools, and everybody's underusing them.
Get in the car and start driving.
Get started as soon as possible, and what our managing partner tells people. Like some partners will say, I want to retire rather than, I don't have to learn AI. I'm going to retire. And her response to them is, unless you retired last year, it's too late. Like you're in. And so
that's the quote from this, by the way. Unless you retired last year,
right, you're in. That's right. That's Casey's quote. I can't take credit for that. But that's how serious she is. And as you point out, our culture is about digging in. And another thing we learned is there's not really an age bias to this. And I would have guessed at the beginning that associates would be pushing partners. But and it certainly happens, but I would say more often we have partners pushing their teams to say, I bought into this, I see what's possible, and I think we are doing our client a disservice if we're not using AI. And in many cases, basically, they require it on their team. Like as a firm, we can't require when you use our 6 or 7 AI tools, but the partner can. And they have kicked off people on the teams if they can't keep up. Basically, they say if you're not using one of our tools, we have drafting tools and summarization tools, et cetera. If you're not using the tools, they can tell because you're ruining their budgets, basically. Now.
Two last things. Number one, I know that you're hiring for staff right now, so I'm gonna let you give a plug for that, and I'm gonna give a plug for you if you don't mind, which is I've known David Cunningham for a little while. He's a mentor, he's a sponsor, he's an advisor. If you're listening and you're a young person or not such a young person,
right,
and you're looking to have an exchange of ideas, David's the kind of guy that if you DM him on LinkedIn, he will respond to you. He will give you 20 minutes with a virtual cup of coffee, and he could talk all day long about metrics and measurements and where we are, where we're going, what's now, what's next, and provide any kind of advice you might want. He's that kind of a leader in our industry, and it's one of the reasons it's been such a pleasure to know you the years that I have. And so with that, who and what kind of talent are you looking for at Reed Smith right now?
Thank you for the warmness. Well, yeah, our innovation team is a bit different because we're really positioned a bit horizontally across the firm. And so we work very closely with the head of marketing, the head of finance, the head of operations. And our job, we see, is to be an incubator and an accelerator across the firm. And so we don't have any boundaries in the firm. We're not we don't want to be seen as another department. We're basically saying we're here to help you be great in your area. And so we're doing a ton around pipeline work, and legal team of the future is a huge initiative for us. That said, our innovation team is partially a consulting unit. Mm-hmm. We have a change leadership team. We have an anthropology lab. We have our AI team, the Rich leads, et cetera. And then we have our data intelligence side. And so we're building up both sides. We're hiring across both, but we're hiring the most on the data side, and that's a story that gets lost a lot in the AI story. People want the tools, and we have those, but we're investing even more on the data aspects to complement it.
If you're radically curious and you're willing to work 996, David Cunningham is the man to come and bring your career to. David, I know you're so busy. Thanks for taking the time at Legalweek to chat with us. I can't wait to talk to you again in 6 months or maybe 8 and find out what's different in this next 8 months as we 5x and 10x the speed and rate of change.
That sounds great.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, David.
If you enjoyed this show, be sure to give us a like and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your shows. And if you want to take your career from now to next, never eat alone.